So as I was saying in the last video, we have gotten to the time period in ancient Greece that we actually know the names of some of the artists. So this person is known as Polykleitos, and the artist was Polykleitos, and he created this figure known as the spear bearer, and this was depicting the young athlete, or the depiction of a young athlete during this time period. And we're dating this piece to circa 450 to 440 BCE. Now, what has happened through the course of history here is that the Romans eventually are going to take over the Greeks. And when they do so, we'll see next week that the Romans actually love the Greek art, and they end up copying a lot of it. And what they do is they take the bronze figures, statues, they copy them into stone, and then unfortunately they melt down the bronze. So we don't have the original piece anymore. Instead, what we have here is a Roman copy. So this piece here and these little supports, that would not have been in the Greek original piece because that was made out of bronze. Now that it was made out of stone, the supports are needed. So Polykleitos becomes an important artist here. One, he's our first person we know who he was, but also just because of how realistic he is starting to get these figures. He has this beautiful contrapposto, which again means the hips are going one direction, the shoulders are going the other direction. He has the head turned, so we have this kind of three-quarter view. The face is very serene, the hair is more realistic looking. He would have originally held a spear, but that over time has been lost. It was made probably out of wood. So his arm is out, extended out beyond the body, the knee is bent, and he looks pretty good. However, he is still out of proportion. His body is a little too long, not quite right. The ratio is not correct. If you ever take a drawing class, you're taught that the perfect ratio is the head will be the size that we're using, and we'll be able to divide the body into 8 different sections. So we're not at that 8-sectioned body yet. So contrapposto again. I've said it a million times already. This is a term that you should know. So if you think back to the Acropolis, because that's the whole complex, I said that we look at the Parthenon, the Erechtheion, and the Temple of Nike. So this is the Erechtheion. And the one thing I really want to point out to you from the Erechtheion is this. This is called the Porch of the Maidens, and it dates to 430s to 406 BCE. And here we have Athens, the city of Athens, in the background. Let's look at this a little closer. And you'll see that the women here actually become the columns, or the columns become the women, right? We don't know for sure who they represent. There are some theories, but no one knows for sure. But they stand in contrapposto. They have their knee bent, their hips slightly tilted, and they look out over the city and over the Acropolis. And they're really beautifully done. And after we have the Erechtheion with these columns like this, we do see throughout architecture going forward depictions like this, where the columns are actually carved into figures or animals or something like that. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes. And then this is the one part of the frieze that I want to show you from the Temple of Nike. And Nike means victory. So this is why, Nike sneakers. She's supposed to be the goddess of speed. So this is why the company took the name Nike. So here we have Nike adjusting her sandal, and this is dated to circa 410 to 405 BCE. And she stands kind of like in this precarious position as she's adjusting her sandal. You can imagine she's only going to be able to stand like this for a couple of seconds. She's not standing like this for very long. The drapery, again, it's the wet drapery technique, so we can really see her body through it, shows her body in quite a, let's say, revealing way that we haven't seen up to this point. And because we've kind of happened on her here, she's kind of off guard, unbalanced, there's a kind of voyeurism, and also the fact that we can see her body so well, there's definitely a sense of sensuality or sexuality that's associated with this figure. So you can see her breasts very easily, you can see her abdomen here, and if you were able to zoom in on this piece, you can see that you even see her belly button. You see her legs really well and her arms. Unfortunately, we've lost her head and part of one of her arms, but we can imagine she's probably looking off in this direction. So that brings us to what becomes known as the late classical period, 400 to 323 BCE. And in this time period, we have some more artists that we know their names. So this is Praxiteles, and again, we don't have the original of these. These are going to be Roman copies that we have. So this is a Roman copy after the 4th century BCE, and it's in marble. So here we have, and these are large, I should have pointed out with the other one was just as large. This is 7 feet, more than 7 feet tall. And so these are larger than life. In the original bronze, then we wouldn't have needed this, and they didn't need all this drapery, but this is to help because stone is more brittle and not as strong as bronze. So unfortunately, he's lost his arm here, and the baby Hermes has lost his arm. If in the original one, Dionysus has lost his arm, the original one in bronze, this wouldn't have been a problem. So this is Hermes, and this is the baby Dionysus, or the infant Dionysus, who was the goddess of wine. And so we're getting even better with the proportion here, but we're still not at that true 8-figure ratio. The two of them look at each other. He has, like I said, in the last one, a fairly serene face. Hair is beautifully done. He stands in pretty extreme contrapposto with the hips really shot out on the side here, and the leg is bent. The muscles, very realistic at this point. So we're getting there. We're getting to the point of these figures being the ideal realistic figure. And here's another piece by Praxiteles, and this is Aphrodites of Kitos. And when we look at Aphrodite, she was supposed to be the goddess of love, the most beautiful woman in the world. And so when we look at this with our modern 21st century view, we might not say she's the most beautiful woman in the world, but at this time period, she was looked at as the ideal beauty. She would have originally been made out of out of bronze. So here, when she's made out of marble, again, we need this support, and we need this support to be added. So we have her, look at her, completely nude. She's our first completely nude female figure within the ancient Greek art. And it's allowed for her to be nude because she's a goddess. So we're still not going to see the average person, average female being nude. It's only going to be men that are nude. But if it's a goddess, she's allowed to be nude, especially the goddess of love. So here she is. She would be getting ready to take a bath or something like that. And this is also another reason why it would be acceptable that she's nude. She's got this great contrapposto, hips going this way, shoulders going this way, nice serene face, very realistic in her hair and the muscles on her body. And here we come to finally Lysippus, and he has finally figured out the proportions of the body as 8 heads, or the equivalent to 8 sections, which is considered the ideal body. And he has this beautiful figure here, which originally would have been in bronze. This is a Roman copy, and the original bronze was circa 350 to 325 BCE. The Roman copy has been added, this Greek, this grape kind of leaf here that would not have been in the original. And what he's doing here, this figure, is he's scraping olive oil off of his body. So the Greeks actually did not know how to make soap. So one of the things that they would do is they would cover their body with olive oil, and then they would use a special tool and they would scrape the olive oil off of their body to clean themselves. So this young man, he has gone out and he has been exercising, which was compulsory within the society, and it meant you were a good citizen if you were physically fit. And the men would exercise together and they would exercise nude, and there would be no female figures allowed to be exercising with them. And so he has finished exercising and he is all sweaty and dirty, and so now he's scraping the olive oil off of his body that he's covered himself with to clean himself. He has this really beautiful contrapposto. His hips are going this way, shoulders going this way. He really extends out into the space in front of him. He's completely broken out of that idea of this boxy figure, if we think back to the Egyptians with one leg forward and arms at the side. His leg even goes off to the side. His face is, very realistic. His hair is really very realistic. It's an absolutely beautiful figure. The muscles, very well physically fit, but the muscles and the knees and everything are done pretty much that they're completely realistic. And do remember that all of these figures originally would have been painted, but we see them in this state because the paint has worn off over the centuries. This brings me to the Hellenistic time period, and I'll stop and I'll make one last video for that.